Hi, my name is Songwood, and this is the Demonology Solo Challenge to unlock its hidden artifact appearance. If you don't want to listen to the commentary, the fight breakdown, the talent choices, etc., there's a timestamp on the screen for you to jump ahead to my kill of the fight. Thanks for coming. Okay, those still here, let's get right into it. Firstly, I'm going to admit off the bat that I'm not a very big fan of Demo, and I haven't played it since Emerald Nightmare. I main Destro and Affliction currently. I am absolutely terrible at playing Demo. That said, this fight is almost entirely about control and dealing with mechanics. It is not a DPS race by any means. The kill video and my poor performance as Demo reinforces that fact. By all rights, I should have probably run a few dungeons to get more familiar with Demonology before attempting to do this, and I would have saved myself a few wipes as I remembered or tried to remember how to play the class or the spec. Artifact wise, I only had 36 traits in Demo, so you'll probably be more progressed than I was. That means it's just that much easier for you. For talent choices, I was using a variety of talents between attempts. So for some of these roles, pick whatever one that suits your comfort level best. For the first role, I swapped between Shadowy Inspiration and Demonic Calling. On the kill, I had Demonic Calling. The issue with either of these was for me finding time to sit still and get out Demonic Empowerment or Shadow Bolts. The benefit of Demonic Calling or Shadowy Inspiration is that you can use Demon Wrath during times of high movement to proc free Dreadstalkers, assuming Dune does not need to be refreshed. The benefit of Shadowy Inspiration is it saves like half of your stationary casts and gives you instant cast Shadow Bolts. Second roll, again I swapped between Impending Doom and Improved Dreadstalkers. I killed it with Improved Dreadstalkers, but in hindsight I think Impending Doom might have been a better choice, especially if you have the Legendary Belt like I did. You have 3 targets to keep Doom up on, which results in 3 or more extra Imps instead of 2 from Dreadstalkers, plus the reduced duration of Doom, you get to cast more instant spells. This is a pretty high movement fight, so the more instant casts you can get away with, the better. For the third row, I recommend taking Mortal Coil for the 3-second Fear. Demonic Circle is only useful for the kiting part, sort of. It was really hit or miss for me whether or not it was in a useful place. Mortal Coil, I found on the other hand, is consistently useful at regular intervals, plus it heals. Fourth row, Power Trip or Soul Harvest. Power Trip for more shard generation and Soul Harvest to help with the really minor DPS check of the fight. Fifth row, take Demon Skin. It's really good to deal with the consistent damage you're taking. Burning Rush is useless because you don't need to get anywhere quickly. The kiting phase is not really that intense to require that talent. Dark Pact is less useful than Demon Skin because of the consistent damage, and also there isn't semi-frequent bursty damage that would be most useful for. For those instances of bursty damage, you can just use your Unending Resolve to mitigate the damage instead. For the sixth row, take Supremacy, specifically for Doomguard. You need its interrupt. It has a 24-second cooldown for that interrupt. You will also be using his cripple ability to slow one of the bosses a couple times during the fight. For the last row, take Summon Darklair. This is a council fight, and you will always have 3 dooms up, which means lots of targets for the Darklair to hit. It is also an instant cast demon, which is again great for fights like this with high movement. On to gear, I basically used my haste-based destruction gear. I don't have anything specific for Demonology. My item level was 905 when I killed this. To the more casual player, it may seem high, but I stress again, this is not a DPS race. For legendaries, I use Prada's Necklace and the Doom Belt. The belt is really good because of all the dooms you'll be throwing out, especially if you take Impending Doom as a talent. The Prada's Necklace, if you have it, helps cover your mistakes well. Prada's also aids Demon Skin with the consistent damage you'll be taking. If you have Cephas's Secret instead, that's another great option for this fight. You're going to be interrupting and CCing the bosses quite frequently, and after that, any other DPS legendaries you have. Consumables, don't forget them. Flask up, be sure to pre-pot with a DPS potion, use health potions over health stones, get food buffs, augment runes, and be sure to grab some drums for the discount heroism, meaning it's only 25% haste instead of 30, but every little bit helps. Alright, on to the fight itself. This is a 3-boss council fight, as we mentioned before. The fight ends when the middle boss, Sigrun, reaches 20% health. Something I wish I knew beforehand, but neither here nor there. So now you know. The fight ends when that middle boss gets to 20% health. The bosses each have their own smaller mechanics, and they will each take turns to perform a special ability throughout the fight. The key to success for this fight is dealing with the overlapping mechanics from the different bosses. At the start of the fight, the middle boss Sigrun will run towards you and start mailing you. The other two will stand in place and just start throwing stuff at you for a while. Beginning with the general environmental mechanics before the boss-specific ones, the first one to take note of is the green pools that Sigrun spawns regularly at your location. They do minor amounts of damage when you stand in them. They aren't drastically important to move out of immediately, so feel free to finish your cast before moving, and you can even run through a patch if it's more convenient than going around it. The second thing to note is the 2 or 3 purple swirly runes that infrequently spawn on the edge of the circle on the floor. They slowly shrink in size, and if they disappear, they explode for high amounts of damage. You want to run over them to soak their explosion. It still does a bit of damage, but much less in comparison to just ignoring them. If you can, soak the smaller ones first, because they have less time for you to get to them, as well as their hitboxes are also shrinking in size, making them harder to soak, so you want to get rid of them as soon as you can. The next thing to be aware of are the stationary yellow orbs. These are friendly orbs. Odin is often sending an ally of Valkyr into the fight to help you, and they drop these orbs for you to use. Running over them restores about 1/3 of your health. Use this as an opportunity to life tap, or as a substitute for a health stone or drain life to get topped off again. The last environmental thing to be aware of starts occurring at about 1 minute 45 seconds into the fight. Sigrun will shout, "I command legions, mortal," and a line of enemy Valkyrs will spawn at one of the cardinal directions. The way to deal with this mechanic is to stand in the break in their line. This is very similar to the creeping doom mechanic from the last boss of Vault of the Wardens, except that these Valkyrs move instantly. After a few seconds, they rush across the room, dealing high damage to you if you get hit by them. It probably won't kill you, but this is completely avoidable damage, so avoid it. Alright, on to the bosses themselves. An important thing to note is that this is not counted as a PvP fight, but a PvE fight. So things like Fear and Cripple have their full durations. They're not shortened like in a PvP setting. Also, each of the bosses are only affected by a single type of CC. The leftmost boss can only be slowed, the middle boss can only be feared, and the right boss can only be interrupted. It's like Blizzard's trying to tell you what to do to counter each of them or something. Starting with the leftmost boss, because it activates first, Jarl Velbrand. At the start of the fight, he's stationary and hurls axes at you. The axes act like Diablo 2 Hammerdins. Wherever they land, they circulate in an expanding circle. If you get hit by them, you get knocked down, kind of. The knockdown doesn't interrupt your cast, so I'm not really sure what the point of the knockdown animation is. They deal very little damage, and it's not really worth going out of your way to avoid. Basically, ignore them. After 25 seconds, Jarl goes into berserking stance. He fixates and starts running towards you. If he gets within melee range, he deals quite a bit of damage very quickly. It's not a high damage one-shot, but his attack speed is incredibly high, so the damage ramps up pretty quick. You want to stay out of melee range of him as much as possible. This is where your Doomguard's Cripple comes into play. Pop a Cripple on him when he activates, while standing on the opposite side of the room from him, and as he gets closer, kite him around the circle. When the Cripple expires, his berserking buff should have fallen off. But if it hasn't, then you can reapply Cripple if you want. To help with kiting, I put my gateway at opposite sides of the circle and used it whenever I needed to escape quickly. The main difficulty in dealing with kiting is also having to soak the purple runes on the ground and avoid the line of Valkyrs later in the fight. Having to soak a purple rune would be the only time I would recommend getting within melee range of him. It's predictable, and you can pop your unending resolve to mitigate the damage you'll take from him. You can also plan to run over Golden Orb to restore your health as you run through him. The last unique thing he does starts happening at approximately 2 minutes. He starts blade storming in place for about 10 seconds. This acts like a vortex and pulls you toward him. Move away from him. The middle boss, the main boss, Sigrun, her only ability is to try and transform into a demon. If she succeeds and transforms into a demon, she starts dealing high AoE damage every second. You do not want to take many ticks of this if you can help it. The transformation cast is what you will use Mortal Coil or Fear to counter. If you took Mortal Coil, it will be available for every cast. If you prevent the cast, she doesn't transform and the fight goes into a lull for a while. If you fail to prevent her transformation, it's not the end of your attempt, so don't freak out. Get a Fear on her as soon as you can. She does not AoE while she's feared, so as long as she's feared, you're fine. The duration of Fear will not last the whole transformation though, so you will need to reapply it. Do not attack her as damage does break Fear. Focus on killing the other 2 bosses. Use this as an opportunity to regain life and mana and generate shards. The reason Mortal Coil is preferable to Fearing is because of its short duration. Assuming you're successful, after 3 seconds, she'll break out of the Fear and resume meleeing you. Whereas when she's feared, she gets she goes way outside the circle, out of range, and it's just hard to deal with her way out there. So instead of the lull I mentioned, you can continue attacking her because she's going to be in melee range. And this is better than fearing because she runs quite far away when feared. And again, fear is broken by damage. So use Mortal Coil. Second will also knock you back periodically. You could potentially use this to your advantage to help with kiting the left boss. I wasn't able to consistently get this to work for me, so I just dealt with the knockbacks as just an interrupt. The rightmost boss, Runeseer Falyar, stands still and turrets the whole fight. He doesn't move from that spot ever. His first ability is Shadow Bolt. This is just more constant damage you'll be taking. You can ignore it. The main ability that you need to watch out for is Ancestral Knowledge. If he finishes casting, you will wipe. The issue is that he also gained a huge shield that you need to DPS through before you can interrupt him. This is the only DPS check in the whole fight. It's pretty simple to handle if you save Thalkiel's consumption to blast him. Note that as the fight progresses, you may not always have Thalkiel's consumption up, but you should be able to DPS through the shield anyways. Once the shield falls, the cast changes from unbreakable to interruptible again. You may need to move your mouse over the enemy frame to get it to update to show that it is now interruptible. Use your Doomguard's interrupt to counter the cast. So the bosses cycle between adds casting an ability and the main boss trying to transform. So for example, it goes the leftmost boss, the middle boss, the right boss, back to the middle boss, back to the left boss. It goes back and forth like that. If you make it to 5 minutes in the fight, the hard part is over. What I found was most of the important mechanics stop appearing. The only ones that remain are the line of Valkyrs, the green pools on the ground, and Runeseer Falyar's Ancestral Knowledge. The other two bosses just follow you around and melee. So keep yourself topped off, pay attention to Valkyrs, and keep pumping damage into Runeseer. If you are planning to kill the ads first, now would be the time to focus Runeseer as much as possible. If you do manage to kill Runeseer, then the only thing you need to pay attention to at that point is the line of Valkyrs. Just take your time executing mechanics properly, and the bosses will eventually die. Towards the end of my kill video, you'll notice I was trying to kill both the ads before finishing the boss. As I mentioned, I did not know that the fight ends when Sigrun reaches 20%. So if she's nearing 20%, just focus your damage on her to end the fight. And if you manage to stay alive that long, congratulations. So thanks for watching. I've also done a similar tutorial video for Destruction. I will be doing Affliction soon. I'm hoping I can do it without having to try and get a Sacrolash, you know, the Corruption Slow ring. I've put a few attempts in and oh god, it's tough. Let's just put it that way. So be sure to look for those videos at the end title card. Thanks again for watching, and here's the kill video.
You cannot hide behind these walls forever, Alden! What's this? The outsider has come to stop me? I owe you much, but I cannot allow you to impede my quest for justice. I will give you a choice. Live here or die.